Frenchie's Art Gallery, located on historic Oak Street beside the Maple Leaf Bar. With over 3,000 square feet of space, it features a large gallery front room and Frenchie's personal art studio. Frenchie's Art Gallery is also connected to the Maple Leaf Courtyard, which is ideal for the New Orleans night scene. Frenchie's Art Gallery, 8314 Oak Street. Yeah, you're right.
So here's the bottom line. Well, it's funny that you say that. Let me tell you. Good evening and welcome to Primetime Sports. Man, it has been a very busy weekend in South Louisiana, but in New Orleans in particular, because this week, for the third time in less than 10 years, it has been NBA All-Star Game weekend, and it has been crazy. If you were anywhere near the French Quarter between the Mardi Gras parades and, of course, the NBA All-Star activities, it's been wild. But, hey, all weekend long, they had the celebrity game on Friday. You had the slam dunk competition and the three-point shooting on Saturday night. And then on Sunday, the culmination of all was the All-Star Game. And if you're a purist like me, well, you might have thought it was a little ridiculous. It was a terrible game, but if you're just in it for the entertainment value, it was spectacular. And it was capped off by a guy named Anthony Davis, the superstar of New Orleans, breaking Wilt Chamberlain's decades-long record of 42 points. He had 52 points and 10 rebounds in this game to get the MVP. I'm telling you what, the rest of the NBA players treated him with royalty as the host, and Anthony Davis, it couldn't have gone to a better person. But I got to say this, it got even better for Anthony because his former UK alum, a guy that he played 2 years after at the University of Kentucky, DeMarcus Cousins, easily one of the most talented big men the NBA has seen in years, along with Davis. Well, now they're becoming teammates because all the news about Anthony being the MVP, well, that's over with because he got the news that DeMarcus was now going to be his teammate. And put this into perspective, there's only been 5 teams that have had 2 players on the team that have averaged 20 points and 10 rebounds in the history of the NBA. And the Pelicans have 2 that are averaging 28 points and over 10 rebounds on one team. This is spectacular. There is some news about Boogie. He has an attitude. He has been ejected more than any other player. More technical fouls, more foul outs. But he has been in the NBA's equivalent of Siberia over there in Sacramento, and a change of scenery is probably all he needs because you're putting 2 incredible talented players together on this team. And for the record, only Wilt Chamberlain himself and Allen Iverson had higher scoring averages in the history of the NBA of players traded during the season than DeMarcus Cousins. If nothing else, it's going to be very, very interesting. Hey, there was lots of local events going on around the city. It was incredible. Habitat for Humanity, a lot of the NBA players were taking care of that kind of stuff. But my producer, William Hill, went over to St. Aug High School for a big event this week leading up to the All-Star Game. This was called the Jordan Brand event. Of course, that's Michael Jordan. He went over to the Purple Knights arena, their gym, and Nike brought uniforms and shoes to schools like St. Aug and Crescent City, Scotlandville, and even Oak Hill Academy from Virginia, one of the great basketballs. But that's rapper O.T. Genesis, well-known, obviously, in the music community. It was a big deal, but he was also on hand. He got us some video from a special dunk that we saw just this past week.
Jordan Brand, St. Aug, we are with you. We want to see something. And we want you to do it big. We want you to do it big.
Well, that was a huge week, and I loved it, and I appreciate Will getting that video. But this was a huge also week because it's the start of college baseball, and nowhere is it more competitive than in South Louisiana. I was up at LSU. Alex Lang threw 5 innings, and he got a win on a shutout. But the big news was Jared Poche threw the first no-hitter in Baton Rouge for LSU in 38 years since 1979. LSU started the weekend out 3-0 with some convincing wins over Air Force and Army. UNO, whose coach Blake Dean is going to join us in a little bit, they play LSU tonight. They went 3-0 this weekend. UL Lafayette, the Raging Cajuns, and Southeastern both went 1-1, and they played last night to 11 innings, and they tied before the rains came. It's 4-4. They're going to pick that one up in March. Tulane went 1-2, but trust me, Travis Jubett's got that team in the right direction. But this show is going to be great. I'm looking forward to it. Not only do we have the coverage that you will never get anywhere else for the Pelicans trade, it's going to be Justin Verrier from ESPN.com and Jake Madison from Bourbon Street Shots. They're all over this trade with Boogie Cousins coming to New Orleans. John Brady is going to come on and talk about the trade as well as college basketball. And, of course, Blake Dean, the hottest young coach in America, will be here on the eve of the day of their game against LSU. Right here on Primetime Sports. Stay tuned. Welcome back, Crescent City and beyond. Of course, Louisiana, Gulf Coast, and all the other areas that get TST, as well as WLE. But I told you, this is going to be a big show. And listen, I had to scrap my plans for the show because after what happened late Sunday night after the All-Star game, I said, well, we have to lead off this show talking about the trade, of course, Boogie Cousins, like we talked about in the Open. And then, of course, the All-Star game as well, where Anthony Davis scored 52 points. And was the MVP in his host city. Welcome to the show. I've got Jake Madison from Bourbon Street Shots and Justin Verrier. I'm going to say this flat out. When I heard about the trade, and I'm like, who can I get to be on the show? You two were first I thought of. I respect your work. I love your work. You've both been on. You're only the second and third guest that I've had on now 3 times in my year doing this. So welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks,
we love you too, Scott.
Thank you, buddy. Well, let's get into this right now because this has been a crazy 36 hours. Let's be honest. I'm going to start with you, Justin. You're with ESPN. Obviously, you're the beat writer. You're with the team on the road and at home. You've seen this whole progress. You got here a year ago, and I think when you came to be the beat writer for ESPN, you thought, man, this is an up-and-coming team. 45 wins the year before. A nice showing in the playoffs, although they had gotten swept by Golden State. Well, you didn't quite get that. And the team started off, since you've been here, poorly. They obviously only won 30 games last year. This year, they're 0-8 again. You must be like, why did I leave L.A. for this? But now there's a little bit of excitement. Talk about what you've been through the last 36 hours.
Yeah, I'm still kind of coming to grasp with this is the new reality of this team. As you said, I got here and I was there for the heyday of the Norris Cole starting at point guard. Right. Luke Babbitt kind of putting up shots toward the end of that season when they were really injured. 351 games lost to injury and illness, I believe, last season. It was just, it was a mess. And obviously this year was tough just because Drew Holiday wasn't there to start with. They got off to a rough start. But now I think they're one of the more interesting teams in the league. Maybe not the best team in the league, but certainly the Pelicans are relevant once again, which is really exciting for New Orleans.
They're being talked about. That's the thing. And the funny part was we were talking about, there's no one nationally that cared about the Pelicans. And all of a sudden, all day yesterday, all night last night, every national publication, every national news show, sports show, ESPN, et cetera, we're talking about the Pelicans.
Oh, absolutely. And in one night and in one deal, they've completely just changed direction of their franchise. They were also Rams in the Western Conference looking at the lottery, and now they're being talked about as having maybe the best front court in the NBA currently.
Yeah, let me say this. There's only been two players that have been traded during the season that have higher scoring averages than DeMarcus Cousins. Will Chamberlain back in the 60s, and Allen Iverson a little more recently. DeMarcus Cousins, I'm not going to quite put them in their class, but talent-wise, this guy's got what it takes. What can he bring for this team?
Right. I think if there's any big man in the league that might be more offensively gifted than Anthony Davis, the guy that they already have in their front court, it's this guy. I think there are some questions as to fit. These are two guys who utilize offensive possessions at top 10 rates in the NBA. But when you have talents like that, these are game changers. This could completely change the franchise not only now, but for years to come, and really changes the landscape of the NBA.
Well, they're both Kentucky guys, so that's one of the things. We all know about the attitude issues he's had. I don't want to get in that yet, but when I think of Twin Towers, I think of guys like when I was younger, it was Hakeem Olajuwon, Ralph Sampson. You guys probably more remember the David Robinson, Tim Duncan. But what does this group of Twin Towers bring that those didn't? Because they seem a little more versatile.
Yeah, it's versatility, exactly. You have Anthony Davis, who has range all throughout mid-range from three-point. He's deadly on the pick and roll, diving to the basket. Then you have DeMarcus Cousins, who has more three-pointers made than Buddy Hield this season. And he's a strong passing big. He's averaging 4.9 assists per game, which is a very high mark for a center. You get him in the ball in the high post, Davis can play off him. While there's going to be some redundancy there, especially with the usage rates, they both need the ball. Their skill sets really complement each other quite well.
Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I look at the defensive end as well. I think, obviously, the offense is going to be key here. Alvin Gentry, kind of an offensive maestro. That's his reputation in the league. And so I'm interested to see what they do on that end. But I look to Anthony Davis and see the guy that came into this league as a rookie. He was thought to be just Defensive Player of the Year candidate every year. That's what we expected as soon as he got into this league. And now potentially maybe he has the ability to scale back on the offensive end and maybe put more of a priority there, which I think helps the team overall.
Well, interesting stat. I saw one yesterday that there's been only 5 duos in NBA history that average 20 and 10. Literally 5. I mean, it's kind of incredible that on one team, teammates that is. And this group right now is averaging 28 and 10, basically. Now, we know the numbers will probably go down, but these two have never played together except for the USA basketball team. Remember, they both went to Kentucky 2 years apart. Like every great Kentucky player, they're one and done under the Cal era. But talk about, if you remember them being on the same team or seeing them together, and besides the fit, like, how are they going to be used, not just in the post, but are they going to still be out on the wing shooting threes because both of them have the capability to do so?
Yeah, I think that versatility, as Jake spoke to, is going to be really important here. Because they can do so many things, you don't necessarily have to worry about carving out specific space for them on the floor. Anthony Davis could be in the pick and roll. DeMarcus Cousins can be in the pick and roll. And I always look at Anthony Davis because he's playing more of a 4 spot now. DeMarcus Cousins fills in and is able to handle those bigger bodies on both ends.
Yeah, and speaking to that point, it's going to free up Anthony Davis and make him just fresher. We've seen as he's played center since about mid-December or so. His body's been worn down. He's been tired on the court. You see his shot hitting the front iron.
Yep.
He's having to get out there and defend these big, bulky, bruising centers. He's got to fight harder on offense to score over him. Here, everything's going to be made easier for him by DeMarcus Cousins. And, you talked about whether they're going to be on the perimeter shooting threes. Imagine just the passing game between these two guys. Like I said, DeMarcus is one of the better passing big men in the league. If you have Anthony Davis setting a screen from him and you run a 4-5 pick and roll, I don't see how teams are going to stop that.
Justin Anthony said all the right things lately. Obviously, we have seen body language issues last year, unlike what we saw the first 3 years. He was happy-go-lucky Anthony. He's been, I think somebody got in his ear this year, and he's obviously they do have moments when you start 0-8 and you're 10-21 at one point. You're gonna be down. But what would this trade? What does this do for his morale, in your opinion, knowing that the franchise is doing something to keep him here and keep him happy?
Yeah, he's definitely a passive guy by nature, more deferential, which I think is going to really help here, not only to add DeMarcus Cousins into the fold, but I think when you have just a personality like Cousins, a big, loud guy who's really going to be out there and kind of say what's on his mind, which is completely different than Davis, I think that there's a chance that he might have a galvanizing force, maybe draw the fire out of Anthony Davis that we haven't seen as often. I look at Draymond Green and the effect that he's had on Stephen Curry. I wonder if DeMarcus can be an accelerant for Davis in that same way.
With Justin Verrier with ESPN, obviously he is the beat writer for ESPN.com, Bourbon Street Shots. We have Jake Madison, who I love. By the way, I feel a little responsible for some of your success because I used to bring you on when no one knew who Jake was, and now I can't turn the radio on or the TV without seeing Jake Madison, and it's well-deserved. Now I have to get to the other side of this trade because there are some GMs around the league that say, good job, Sacramento. You got a problem off your hands. The guy leads the league in technicals, leads the league in ejections, leads the league in foul-outs, and he has done so since he came into the league in 2010. What do you say to those people?
While there's no questions about his play on the court and his natural ability, the questions are with his character, his temperament, and his attitude. And that's the biggest thing. And if you talk to, and I've talked to a lot of Sacramento people over the past couple of days here.
I bet you have.
They are all ready just to have moved on from him. They weren't too upset that the package didn't seem to be equal to his value. They were ready just to get rid of it. That's the biggest concern here. But the Pelicans this offseason did really try and focus on building locker room culture, bringing in good influences like E'Twaun Moore, Solomon Hill. They don't make this deal unless if they're that worried about DeMarcus Cousins' outburst. They think they've got strong enough leaders in there that should keep him in line.
Well, a cynic might say Dell made this deal because he's trying to save his job. What would you say to them?
I think Dell Demps definitely hit a home run here. We've been critical of Dell for the past few years. I think there are some relevant questions you could raise based on some of the moves he'd made, even this offseason, where it seems like they took an appreciable step back in order to take a step forward, perhaps down the road. But this is a home run. This is one of the best trades in maybe New Orleans sports history. It really changes the face of this franchise. And while there are some potential pitfalls down the road, we'll see if DeMarcus ends up signing here long term. He has one more year after this season. But I think you take those chances regardless.
I think all three have been on Twitter a lot the last 36 hours. And the one thing I gleaned from Twitter from Sacramento folks is that they are like, you know what? Just like we talked about, it's been a problem here. We love his talent, but it felt like when I was defending to the rest of the country about why Jimmy Graham wasn't here, and it was a different situation. Jimmy Graham wasn't getting disqualified, but they couldn't understand, why would you let a great talent go? And I kept telling people, listen, this is a locker room issue. This is a guy that had become a diva. We love Jimmy Graham, great talent. But the fact is everybody poo-pooed that trade, and all of a sudden, Max Unger's pretty darn good, one of the best centers in the league, and they got a first-rounder that hasn't panned out yet. But sometimes the reaction in the beginning is not what always happens in the end.
No, everyone wants to rush to judge this trade and say the Pelicans are the winner, the Kings are the loser, and that is the way it appears right now. But you're not really going to get a solid idea of who won this trade for a number of years. But on the surface, giving up so little...
Joe better know in about 25 games. And I love Dell. I'm just saying that, trust me, I'm a big fan of Dell Demps. Unlike a lot of people, I think he has put some of these role players in, and people don't give him credit for that part. They always say Eric Gordon and all these other things, but he has done some good things well. But back to what you were saying.
No, and to that point, it's the rest of the work he needs to do going forward right now is filling out this roster and kind of fine-tuning it and dialing it in, and that's actually Dell Demps' strength. So there's a chance he's not done making moves in advance of Thursday's trade deadline.
And what time is that, by the way?
I believe it's 5 p.m.
5 p.m.
Thursday, yeah, okay. So if you're watching the replay on Thursday, it's over. But if you're watching tonight or tomorrow, hey, but real quick, I have to say this. You mentioned the filling in parts. The starting lineup now becomes in your eyes, and then who do you think that they might have to try to go get, or not who, but what kind of player to fill in? I
mean, I would assume the natural starting lineup, I'm sure you're going to agree, is going to be Drew Holiday, E'Twaun Moore, Solomon Hill, Anthony Davis, DeMarcus Cousins. They need to bring some shooting in. The forgotten man in this trade is Omri Caspi, who's a strong shooter from the perimeter, shoots about 40% when he's been healthy. They still need some more shooting. They need a guard to come off of the bench who can kind of create his own shot, instant offense. They have a trade chip in, a second-round pick still. They got a trade exception from this deal where they could absorb someone's salary potentially. And you still have a guy like Terrence Jones who's likely not going to be brought back next year that you might be able to move and get something in return.
Real quick, I want to ask you this because, listen, the guys they let go, I think everybody realizes that Tyreke Evans didn't fit the system. I like Tyreke Evans a lot, but for this team, I think they were just kind of showcasing him lately to see what they could get because he's an expiring contract anyway. But Langston Galloway was a new signing. I kind of feel bad for him because he came home. Obviously, Buddy Hield, you have to give up something. He was the 6th pick of the draft. That's 3 guards that are gone. I mean, how do you fill that void with what you have right now? Because you have to start winning immediately.
Right, and those are the big questions, I think, on the perimeter and also shooting three-pointers because you have 2 big guys there. You want to provide space around them. DeMarcus and AD are going to be able to help in that regard. But I think they have had problems this season on the perimeter in order finding space for Anthony Davis, and I think it's going to be even more so. I would look to Omri Caspi as perhaps a guy that could fill that role. But when you have a guy like Terrence Jones that I think that both sides are ready to move on from, I think that's the route they're going to need to get some more help right there.
He mentioned Caspi as well, but what do you think Caspi can bring for this team? He has started many games in the NBA.
We'll see. I mean, they kicked the tires on Caspi earlier in the season. I think they had discussions centering around Dante Cunningham. Nothing came to bear on that. But this is a guy that I think could potentially be a game changer. We all forget about this guy as a part of the deal. He seemed to be just a throw-in. But I think he has the potential to start there if Solomon Hill moves off to the bench and maybe becomes more of a utility guy from that role.
Who else do they have on the bench?
I mean, you have Tim Frazier, who's got to probably be the second happiest guy, third happiest guy on this team out of DeMarcus Cousins and Anthony Davis, where, once Tyreek Evans came back from injury, he was kind of the forgotten man and was getting a lot of DMPs. He's the backup point guard all of a sudden, going to see 20-plus minutes in every game. And I think he'll be a good fit off the bench, too. He's a distributor. He wants to pass the ball, get the ball to the bigs, and let them do their work.
Yeah, he could end up starting or maybe finishing games.
And what about further down the bench, guys that come in like 8th, 9th guy? Dante Cunningham, what's his role now?
Yeah, I think the bench is going to be limited. I think it's going to be a shorter bench than we've seen in the past. Obviously, Check Diallo is a guy who could potentially come in there and spot maybe a few minutes, but he is young and raw. Dante is going to continue to do what he does, and I think it's going to be really big for him because he could potentially swing and play more of a versatile role. He's been shooting threes here better than at any point of his career, and I think he's been more of a contributor than most people realize. He's been really important for this team this season.
Okay, you can call me a grumpy old man, but I have been at 20 All-Star games working in one way or the other, and what I saw on Sunday night, I honestly I didn't go to this year, and I didn't go because I had a feeling it was going to be what it was, and it was terrible to me. I mean, listen, call me the get off my lawn guy. Hey, back in my day, things were different. I just can't stand. All I could think about, what would Michael Jordan be doing just watching alley-oop after alley-oop? He would be crushing Anthony Davis on these easy ones. So you're both younger than me, and I have had a lot of people on Twitter and Facebook that are trying to let me see the other side of it, but I want your opinion on what you saw Sunday night.
I'm fine with it. It's an exhibition, and now that there's so much money throughout the NBA, you don't want anyone going out and playing super hard and getting hurt and costing him money the rest of this year, playing time, or something with his career.
Can't they at least try, though? Show me something that you can get in the way between the goal and the guy trying to score the goal.
I think my favorite moment at one point was there was LeBron James on the perimeter for three, just dribbling, and Kevin Durant's about 10 feet from him, just making eye contact, not even walking towards him to try and get an arm up and defend, and LeBron shoots and makes it. And I just started laughing.
That was my favorite moment, too, because all of a sudden he's shooting a 42-footer, and I'm like, what is he doing? And he nailed it.
I'll be honest with you, I was bored. I was bored most of the weekend. The dunk contest fell flat.
All of it.
Rising Stars always falls flat. It'd be nice to find some incentive in order for these guys to play a little bit harder, maybe add a little bit more money. Even Steve Kerr said in his post-game press conference he'd like them to be a little bit more competitive because he's just standing there. I think he said Weekend at Bernie's, he felt like, on the sidelines there. So I don't know how they do it, but it would be nice.
All right, I am proud of Anthony Davis, and I'm proud of New Orleans, although this was the least worked for MVP ever. He did crush Will Chamberlain's record by 10. I don't know how proud you can be of it, but he did get 52 points in 10. Great moment for New Orleans and Anthony Davis.
Yeah, it's just a nice moment. Fan service, nice for them to do that for him here. I mean, clearly that was set up more or less before the game was even played, that this was the goal here. So, there's maybe some collusion involved in this. I'm sure Vegas, if you could bet on it, was going to be kind of unhappy. But nice moment for the fans, and it turns out this is an afterthought on the weekend.
Yeah, I start to wonder if Alvin Gentry put in a few calls to his friend Steve Kerr there to get Anthony Davis the ball.
And Alvin is well liked around the league, obviously, and Anthony is too. It's nice to see that because you don't just have that kind of respect around the league for someone to do it. I mean, every alley-oop was thrown to him. Russell Westbrook might not have gotten the memo, but other than that, I think they figured it out. But the storyline after the game obviously was Boogie Cousins. The storyline during the game was Anthony Davis. The one thing that we all kind of forgot about, but no one could stop talking about before, was Durant Westbrook. Any thoughts on what went on there since you were there?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the tension was palpable in that arena. Everyone was waiting, and as soon as Durant checked in, when Westbrook checked in with Durant, the entire arena started to murmur. Everyone was looking forward to see what these guys were doing. And I think the best part of that whole thing was when they finally connected on an alley-oop dunk for Russell Westbrook. They call a timeout, and everybody on the West bench celebrated. They were really excited for him. I think Steve Kerr said Steph Curry even threw water or something. So it was a really fun moment.
It was interesting to see the bench reaction when Westbrook checked in. The players were all rapt, paying attention. But it was nice to see there wasn't anything going on with it. They had fun. They did the right thing for the fans, threw some alley-oops to each other. It was a good time.
Well, you are my second and third guests that have come 3 times. You're 2 of the best in the business. I truly mean that. Check them both out. Bourbon Street Shots, for my friends around the state that haven't figured that one out, get on it right now. Go to @NolaJake, and of course Justin Verrier, ESPN.com. If you're a Pelicans fan, you better be on that one already. Hey, I want to thank these 2 guys. I've got gift certificates for both of you. You've already signed my ball, but now we're going to move on. I will have some more basketball because I'm going to have Coach John Brady, the former LSU Final Four coach, who's my weekly basketball guest during the basketball season. Well, we're going to get off college for a little bit and talk about this trade as well, and we're going to get into some college stuff as well. But next, I have one of the hottest young coaches in Division I NCAA baseball. His name is Blake Dean, former LSU superstar of the 2009 World Series. He won when they won that national championship. Now he's with UNO. His wins last season in his first year, well, they exceeded the previous 3 years for the Privateers combined. This year he started off 3-0, and they play the LSU Tigers tonight right here in New Orleans. His name's Blake Dean. He's coming up next on Primetime Sports.
Rock and roll will never die. It's old New Orleans, my, oh my. Come on, baby, let's go rock and roll at the city lane. All night, let's roll, let's rock and roll. Baby, do the rock and roll. At Mid-City Lane's the home of rock and roll.
The owners of the Delachaise Wine Bar on St. Charles Avenue have opened up their newest creation uptown on Maple Street called Chez Delachaise, a new local wine bistro featuring a larger menu of small and large plates, a brighter atmosphere, and full table service. Additionally, patrons can enjoy a large patio out front as well as an extensive wine list offering selections from around the world. It's Chez Delachaise, 7708 Maple Street between Carrollton and Broadway.
Crescent City Steakhouse, a true neighborhood restaurant operated by the Vojkovic family since 1934, is the oldest steakhouse in the city of New Orleans. Serving only hand-cut, prime-aged, corn-fed beef for over 80 years, Crescent City Steakhouse has become a dining destination for both die-hard locals and adventurous travelers who seek traditional, timeless New Orleans cuisine. Crescent City Steakhouse, 1001 North Broad, on the corner of St. Philip, in the heart of New Orleans. Welcome back to Primetime Sports, and I want to thank Big Sam from Big Sam's Funky Nation for giving us those great tunes. Hey, my next guest was an LSU Tiger baseball player, a World Series champion back in 2009, and then he went to the minors for a bit, and then went over to coach at UNO as an assistant under the great Ron Maestri. And since then, last year, he got the job, winning 31 games, whereas the previous 5 years, UNO baseball averaged 11 wins. He got 31 in his first year. Now he's in his second year. He's got a lot of seniors, and he's got a lot of promise with some junior college players. And they started off the season 3-0 this past weekend, but they have a big mountain tonight. It's LSU, his alma mater, coming to town at Privateer Park, and they play a big one. And my next guest is Blake Dean. Dude, it's so good to see you again. We had you last year, and you were in the middle of that great run you had in your first season. What's it been like? You've been here a full year now. What's it been like to be the head coach?
Well, they made it pretty easy. I mean, the first year. You know, I expected it to be a lot more difficult. And don't get me wrong, it is difficult. But those guys exceeded everything I expected they were going to do. So this year, I feel like our expectations are raised. And now I kind of feel like we got to pick the bar up and continue to get better.
I see a confidence on the team that I didn't see. We're going to get to that in a second. But first, I had you on last year. We talked a little bit about your LSU career, and I've got to bring it up because we have a new audience now that's around the state. What was it like? You know, because LSU, you kind of grew up at least watching from afar as a kid when they won 5 titles in 10 years. They had a little bit of a drought as far as national titles because LSU, they don't go to win SEC titles, they go to win national ones. 2009, you got it done. I got to ask you, what did it feel like?
It was awesome. I mean, that's what I went to college for, was to win the national championship. And, you know, my first year at LSU, we struggled. My second year, we went to Omaha. The third year, we won it. We just progressively got better and better, and it's something that, you know, we talk about all the time with Coach Verrier. Those guys will never be able to take a national championship away from us, and it's something I talk to my players about continuously. You got to strive to be the best, and if you want to be the best, you got to practice and do things like we did at LSU to get to that level.
Well, we had Paul Maneri talking about that team. Obviously, we had Mason Katz on recently. He was a freshman, I believe, on that team. He said he looked up to you. He said he always admired your swing. When you guys got there, was it one of these feelings, hey, I'm just happy to be here, or were y'all just like, we are coming to win this? Because sometimes just getting there is good enough for some teams.
Sure. I think our sophomore year was the kind of, we're happy to be here. Everyone was young and new. And then the junior year, it was all business. We went there to win it. I don't think we lost more than 2 games once the entire year in a row. So for us, we went there, and it was strictly business. Get in, get out, get a ring, and that's what we went to do.
The thing that struck me most when you were on last time, you mentioned, hey, Scott, I could have been in the minors for a long time. I even had a shot at the majors. I knew pretty soon after being in the minor leagues that I wanted to get out and get in coaching and get in as soon as possible. Tell that story.
Well, I just kind of, I went there, and when you leave LSU, you take charter flights. It's the top of, you just have everything you want at your disposal. I mean, it's the equipment, the gear, the travel, the food, unbelievable. You go to the minor leagues, it's like you're down playing Little League baseball again. So I said, for me, let me get out. Let me go back to college baseball while I'm still young, because I loved college baseball. It made a huge impression on me. So I said, let's get out while we're still young and try to go do something else.
By the way, how old are you right now?
28.
Still 28. By the way, you won 31 games at the age of 27. That's pretty remarkable. You did get some great tutors. I mean, obviously you had Paul Maneri, who has won 1,300-plus games. You got to coach under the great Ron Maestri. When he came back, he had such a great run early in the 70s and 80s, but, bringing them to the first World Series in any school in Louisiana history. So talk about what it was to learn from these 2 guys.
Well, I've told a lot of people, not that LSU didn't teach me baseball. I kind of already knew how to play baseball, but Coach Maneri and Coach Maestri taught me discipline. They taught me how to create structure, and especially with Coach Maneri coming from the Air Force Academy and stuff like that. That's probably been the biggest impact on me, is instilling, being on time, having a detailed plan, all that type of stuff. Structure was what I brought into UNO and kind of just flipped the script a little bit for us.
Well, when Ron came back, Maestri came back, and he's like, you know what? He even told me, I don't think we're going to win right away. We have a lot of work to do. But he set the table for you. You got to coach under for, I believe, his 2nd year. I think he came back for 2. What did that mean? Because, not to say the program was in disarray, but he kind of set that table, and now you're seeing the swagger back at UNO.
Sure. I mean, Coach Maestri basically set me up for an opportunity to be where I am now. I mean, he's an unbelievable baseball guy. He lives and breathes it. That's all he does. He comes to every game. If we have another game at the park, he's there. So his baseball knowledge, the guys he's been around, the stories he can tell you, it's unbelievable, and it's just a wealth full of knowledge that I continue to use on a daily basis.
Literally in the last month, I've had Travis Jewett from Tulane. I've had, obviously he's brand new, Paul Maneri from LSU, and Matt Reiser from Southeastern. There is some great baseball. That doesn't even count UL, Tony Robichaux's team. Nichols plays very tough-nosed baseball, as well as McNeese. What is it about this region? Because there is a lot of competition. Listen, I was in Georgia, and they had some good teams, but I don't think it's anything like the amount of competition you get down here in South Louisiana.
Kids want to go where there's good baseball, and when good programs are around you and you play good programs consistently, it raises your expectation levels up in the performance we do. So when you're playing LSU and UL and Tulane and Southeastern, it only makes us better. When you play better competition, you typically get better results from it. So guys, in baseball in the South, it's everywhere. Recruiting here is the challenge, because there is so many good schools with LSU's and the Southern Misses and the Southeastern Tulane. There's so many. So for me, I had to kind of venture out and try to hit a different path recruiting-wise.
Well, you're doing great things. I have to say, let me get one last thing back to the player, because Will Clark and I, we kind of grew up the same era, same Catholic League. He had one of the sweetest swings I've ever seen. On the college level, and I've watched a ton of it, particularly LSU, you had one of the most beautiful swings. Did you emulate anybody to get that? Because Mason Katz even told me, he goes, nothing prettier than watching a Blake Dean swing for a home run.
No, I didn't. I mean, I grew up in a small country town, so for me I fished and hunted, to be completely honest with you. Baseball was just kind of something I did for fun, and I actually was a better pitcher than I was a hitter, but I tore my shoulder. So for me, hitting it just was a natural thing for me that always felt right, and it was just a natural occurrence.
Well, you either got it or you don't, because I'm going to say this. You're not a huge guy by any means, and you obviously had some stroke on that swing. I've got to ask you about your team, because your brother obviously is the first question. He's on this team. He looks like he could be a manager. He looks very comfortable with you and Maneri right there. A great player. Talk about what it means to have him play for you, but more importantly, bringing him in? Was it a tough sell, or did you say, hey, little brother, you're coming?
Yeah, I kind of told him, I said, listen, if I get this job, I need you to come over here. I said, he had other offers on the table, but I said, if I get the job, you've got to come here because I need you to help me flip this place around. He goes, if you get the job, I'm coming. So it wasn't a tough sell. The tough part's kind of handling my mom when I'm hard on my brother and I'm pushing him. I got to calm my mom down, but he's probably one of my best players, and he works really hard for me.
You have a great nucleus. I remember going to some games last year, and there's guys that just stuck out immediately. Your brother being one of them. There's Hezekiah Randolph and Aaron Palmer. First of all, talk about what your brother brings to this team, and then these other leaders as well.
My brother brings a lot of energy. He plays extremely hard. He's talented, but he has to work hard to produce and get the results he needs. Then you got Aaron Palmer. He was at Georgia Southern his freshman year, transferred out. He's just a country boy who plays hard. I mean, he gets after it. I saw him last year dislocate his finger. He snapped it back in place.
Ouch.
And played the rest of the year. And then Randolph is kind of a local guy, I guess, from Baton Rouge, and he's the same way. We've had him for 4 years, so he's kind of been through the trials and tribulations of not having success and losing. And it's once those guys got a taste of winning, then it changed their whole mindset for them.
Well, I've noticed Randolph's been DHing. Is that something he's going to do most of the season, or is he going to get back and forth in the field?
Yeah, he'll probably DH for us because we got some depth in the outfield. Got some guys that can really run, can really hit. So for us, it kind of opens up him in the DH spot opens up another position for us to get another bat in there.
Well, I find myself during baseball season, particularly this first weekend, I did go to the LSU games and saw some great baseball out there, but I'm constantly checking the phone, seeing how the other teams in the state. Sean Simple was your pitcher, and he threw a shutout. And I was at a couple shutouts on Saturday, but this is your ace. Talk about him and what he provides for this team as far as leadership and on the mound.
Well, he's been with us since his freshman year. Kid's from New Jersey, so we got him out of the cold, brought him down here. And he's progressed. He's worked really hard. He came in 85, 87. This fall, he was 90, 94. So for us, it's going to...
On the fastball.
Yeah, on the fastball, yeah.
He's got some eligibility still.
Yeah, amen. So, it could be a big draft year for him, but hopefully I get him for one more year. We were talking about the other day. I said, listen, if you get drafted, then I want you to do what you got to do. But don't ask me my opinion because I'm going to be a little greedy, and I want you to stay. But he's a great kid who works hard for us, and he's a big leader on the pitching staff.
I heard he might have gotten dinged up this week. What happened?
Yeah, Sunday after he threw Friday, he was throwing in the outfield, and one of our hitters, actually, Verrier, hooked the ball down the line, hit him in the back of the head, and he's out. He's kind of on concussion protocol right now, so hopefully he'll be back pretty soon. I needed him Friday for Troy, but it doesn't look like he's going to make the start.
Friday pitcher's already out.
He's out.
Oh, my goodness.
He's out.
Time to step up. Get that rotation
right.
stepping up. All right, you mentioned Oren Veillon. How do you pronounce that?
Yeah, Veillon. That's
Veillon,
right.
All right, so he's the fifth hitter. What does he bring for your team?
Well, he actually signed at UL out of high school and had to have Tommy John.
Sounds like a UL player, by the way, with the name.
Yeah,
All
exactly.
Right.
Yeah, so he transferred to Eunice, and then we got him after this year. He's probably the most athletic individual on our team. Can run a 6'5", can dunk a basketball, flat-footed, throws well, hits well. He has a lot of energy. You just got to get him to be a little more consistent. Sometimes we have some swing and misses in there, but we got some good guys around the lineup this year who kind of, protect him and get him more fastballs.
Palmer, Randolph, and Dean are the nucleus. These are seniors that have been around, but you have a newcomer that seems to be all over the TV, maybe because he's from Canada and there's not a lot of baseball. I don't know. Tristan Clark, I know one thing. I love his personality. How is he on the field?
He's a good player. He came in with us. He got drafted last year, hit 18 home runs at a junior college, and we got lucky enough to steal him away. I don't know how no one else got him, but we luckily got him here. And we've got him, he's gained 15 pounds since he's been here. He literally puked for the first 3 weeks
he
was
15,
here.
Though, right?
Yeah.
Not like what I gained when I came to New Orleans.
Yeah, a good 15. Yeah, we put some good weight on him.
Right.
And he hits well. He's the kid's got power. He's got tons of pro potential. And this guy still, he's a little raw, but we're getting him there. And hopefully with my brother and Randolph around him, he'll have good success.
You might be the only team in America that has 2 Dakotas in the starting lineup. Your brother being one, and the other is the guy that's batting 6th, Dakota Phillips.
Yeah, he's a Texas kid. Got him from a junior college in Texas. Strong, physical kid. Can really, really hit it. He hit a home run backside Sunday. Got his first home run of the year. And again, our lineup, if you go through it, we got a lot of power guys. We just sometimes swing and miss a lot. So hopefully he can get a little more consistent, plays first base for us, and hopefully he hits between, I'd say, 8 and 10 home runs this year.
What is it like, though, tonight? You're going against your alma mater. You did it last year, but there's got to be a different feeling. This is a different game. be honest with me. Tell me what this is like.
Oh, that's awesome. You know, I always joke with Coach Verrier. I was talking to him earlier. I said, listen, crucial situation, I got to steal your signs. So don't bunt, don't hit, because I know his signs. They're the same as when I was there. So I told him, I said, Coach, if it's a crucial time, I'm going to have to steal one sign from you. But I enjoy it. Hopefully I have a good crowd, and I always love seeing it.
So that's not against the baseball rules?
It is. I always joke with him. I wouldn't do it, but I mean...
Yes, you would. I mean,
I might.
No one's going to remember that you stole a sign. They're going to remember if you beat LSU, the number 2 team in the country.
That's
He's
right.
honest, at least. Hey, got a great $50 for you over here at a great restaurant on Maple Street. Enjoy it. I know you're a man about town. Grab a friend and go over there. And here, be my honor for you to sign this LSU ball. This is a tradition we have. Blake Dean, one of the greatest players in LSU history, but for UNO Privateer fans, you have to love it because he is becoming one of the great coaches. He's certainly one of the hot young coaches in America, and I mean that. And I had one on last week, Matt Reiser. I put him in the same class, and our good friend Andy Cannizzaro, who was also on recently up at Mississippi State. So for Blake Dean, hey, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Good luck tonight. And my next guest, you know him well because he's here every week during basketball season. John Brady, the former LSU basketball coach. Well, we're going to go out of his comfort zone a little bit because we're going to talk some NBA this week. Because when Anthony Davis gets a running partner like DeMarcus Cousins, you got to ask anybody that knows basketball how that's going to work out. And he's next right here on Primetime Sports. Welcome back, and of course that is E.T. from Dirty Dozen Brass Band. Hey, earlier in the show before Blake Dean, of course, we talked to Justin Verrier from ESPN as well as Jake Madison from Bourbon Street Shots, all about the trade. So this week in my Brady on Hoops segment, that's of course John Brady, the former Final Four coach at LSU, we're going to get into some college stuff like we always do, but we're going to start off because it is on the tips of everybody's tongue here is talking about this big trade with Boogie Cousins to come to New Orleans to play with Anthony Davis. And so here he is, John Brady. Welcome back, my friend. I feel like I'm telling you this every week because it is every week. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great.
I feel like now that you're on every week, I got to ask you, how was your weekend? Did you have a nice time? I know you called a game at Northwestern. You're getting a lot of accolades, my friend.
Well, it was good. That's what I kind of want to move into, and you got to start somewhere. And you know, I know those coaches there at Northwestern and Southeastern, Jay Ladner and Mike McConaughey really well, and it was a good game. And I enjoyed doing that. It's a lot of fun. Do it with Lynn Rollins, and got a couple more down the pike, and looking forward to doing it. It's a lot of fun.
The dude is great at it. If you haven't seen him call a game or heard his voice doing it, it's great knowledge. And he's fair, respectful to the players and coaches, obviously, but he also says it like it is. So let's get on with this trade. Let's say it like it is here. This is big. I mean, listen, AD wins the MVP of the All-Star game, and then within minutes it becomes an afterthought. And he scored 52 points, 10 more than Will Chamberlain. Now, did he earn those points? Probably not. So let's start there, by the way. Let's do it. Okay. Because I was grumpy old man on Twitter and on Facebook, and everybody dogged me. If you're under 30, you dog me because you're like, hey, you're old man. You don't see it for what it is. And I said, well, I remember All-Star games when they actually cared and mattered, and of course you do too.
Well, they say the NBA All-Stars need to put on a show. Well, what's your definition of a show? Is it a lot of baskets, a lot of dunks, or a lot of layups, or is it a show of where you're defending well and trying to guard a little bit? I'm sure they're not going to do it like they do in the game, but Anthony Davis gets 52, and 18 or 19 of them are layups or dunks. So it was entertaining to a point, but I think some people didn't really like watching that style of basketball. But if you want to just go see a show and see some athleticism, then that's your game.
Okay. Well, let's move on.
Okay.
let's get into Boogie Cousins. Listen, There's no doubt that this is a mercurial talent. This guy, forget the numbers. So 28 and 11 or 12 rebounds, whatever he is, he's top 5 in almost every category. A lot like Anthony Davis. However, he brings a little baggage, and I want your opinion as a coach because I love his talent, but Could you work with a guy like this?
Well, a little insight on that.
Okay.
This morning, Garrett Temple, who played for me at LSU and who plays for Sacramento.
Right, his former team. Right.
Yeah, and Garrett was was a point guard for our Final Four team
Sure.
in 06. We interviewed him on the radio about that, and he said that he is a great teammate. He is emotional, but all his emotion is not in a negative way because he wants to win. He will tell a player, hey, you need to take a better shot or make one more pass to the open guy. It's never about him. It's about making the team play better. Now, Garrett says he could express himself maybe in a different way from time to time. He said, and he's probably changed since his early days in the league because sometimes you get labeled as a malcontent or an emotional player when he's grown over the years. But Garrett said he enjoyed playing with him. And Garrett made this comment. He said, Coach, I played for a couple emotional players with you at LSU, and he said I also played for an emotional coach. He said, so I know.
I think I know that guy.
He said I know how to deal with that. But he really liked him and thought it was a positive.
No, I think it's a positive too, especially losing becomes cancerous in itself. I mean, listen, they've won 33 games is the most they've ever won since he's been there. Think about that. 33 and 49 is the best record. 22 is pretty much more the norm for them. So coming to a franchise that hasn't been winning themselves, but when you talk about putting these two monstrous talents together, how can it work and will it work, Coach?
Well, I think it will work. There'll be some transition, obviously, but I really think, and I don't know Anthony Davis personally, but just watching him play, I think he's got the kind of selfless attitude that will help bring in a player of this caliber where there won't be a lot of tension. I don't think he's going to be jealous of him at all. And I really think as professionals, those two guys know they can leave a legacy here in this franchise if they learn how to play together and play well together. DeMarcus Cousins had made more threes than Buddy Hield. I mean, he's made more threes than actually the guy they traded for him.
Right.
Yeah, so I don't think they're going to be restricted to low post play, actually. I think they can do some high-low. They can still play some 4 out of round 1. The only thing I worry about is on the defensive end. I think certainly Anthony's going to probably have to defend the smaller forward when they get out on the floor and have to cover, whereas DeMarcus would probably play the bigger post around the goal. I think from an offensive standpoint, they're fine. I'm interested to see how they incorporate both of those big fellas on the floor from a defensive standpoint.
Well, they were deep at guard, the Pelicans were. Now the Kings are, along with Garrett Temple. They just got 3 guards. You mentioned one of them, Buddy Hield, Langston Galloway, a guy you know very well out of Baton Rouge. He played at St. Joe's, and, of course, he came down home as a free agent from the Knicks to be home, and I feel bad for him. He's gone. But that's not my question. And obviously Tyreke Evans is a third. But now you're left with just a couple guards really on your roster, Drew Holiday and E'Twaun Moore, and, of course, you have Tim Frazier to play the point. What will they be able to do to replace these guys? Because they did get Omri Cosby, who's more of a swing man, more of a 3. He could play 4 and 2 if you need it. But what are they going to do?
Well, I think they must have confidence in the guards they have. I think that the players that they have out there now and the guards they're going to play with, I think the trade-off of bringing DeMarcus Cousins here with the guards they have in place now, I think they have confidence in those guys. I don't think they have to expand their game as much. I just think they have to incorporate more picks and rolls and really be a pass first and see what those two big guys want to do with the ball first before they get interested in taking their shots.
Tulane got a first big win in a long time. LSU is on a 13-game slid. We're not going to talk about them today. Let's talk about a team that is really on fire. The UNO Privateers, they're 13-3 in the Southland Conference. And, Coach, that's a 13-team conference where they were picked 10th before the season. I can't say enough good things about this team. We've been to a couple games. Talk about UNO from a coaching perspective.
Well, I've done a couple of Southland Conference games on TV, done the color for them, and I've seen UNO practice, and we went to a game. They're not a real attractive, pretty team offensively, but they play hard enough to get it done. I've always thought that the most important stat in college basketball is the field goal stat. UNO shoots 46% from the floor. They hold their opponent to 42. They shoot 34 from the three-point line. They hold their opponents to 31. So it's not about how high your field goal stat is. It's about what you do on the offensive end to make baskets, and then on the other end, what you do to defend it. So they have a good combination. Plus, they out-rebound their opponents by 8 rebounds per game, which makes for a well-efficient, functioning team.
That's huge. Traven Thibodeau is a big part of that. But the star of this team to me, they have 2 senior guards, which we'll get to in a quick second. But Eric Thomas, averaging 21 a game. I mean, he rebounds with the best of them. This guy will probably be the conference player of the year.
Well, I think there's no question about it. He's a 60% field goal shooter. He plays hard. He defends around the goal for them. He rebounds the ball, averaging 8 rebounds a game. He's a 21-8 guy, night in, night out. And in that particular league, that's what you need, particularly around the goal. But he can also step out and make some baskets as well. So he's a real key for them. The biggest thing you want is no injuries, no turned ankles, for him to stay healthy the rest of the way. 2
guards that are seniors along with Thomas. Thomas is relatively new, coming from Baton Rouge Community College out of Florida. But the 2 seniors have been just all over the court for 4 years now. Christavius Gill out of Alexandria and Nate Fry from Homa. I love watching them play. They're fun to watch, but how important is it to have seniors?
Well, it's tremendously important. As we've talked about before, guard play is important for any team to have a chance to do something special. Both of their guards are playing really well, and it's a good sign that they've recruited well. Anytime you can sign a player from Alexandria and a guy from Homa to come to UNO and stay there 4 years, you've done a nice job of recruiting and putting your team together.
Coach, last week we talked about the 3 teams in the SEC that were definitely going to be in the tournament. South Carolina, they've lost 2 since. They're in still. And I'm pretty sure you agree with that.
Yes.
Kentucky, of course, and Florida, they're rolling. But the 4th team we talked about, we mentioned 4 teams. We mentioned Alabama, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Arkansas. Has anyone stepped up and stamped that ticket to the big dance in your opinion?
Well, I think last week the win at South Carolina at Arkansas punched their ticket. You know, they've got 4 games left. Unless they just fall completely apart here down the stretch, I think they've done enough to get themselves in. They've won 18 or 19 games. They'll probably finish with 21 or 22 wins. The teams that they play their last 4 games can't raise their RPI or their strength of schedule. It can lower it if they lose. So they have to be careful here down the stretch. But I think the win against South Carolina punched Arkansas's ticket.
Mike Anderson, I couldn't be happier for him. He could be an SEC Coach of the Year candidate. Obviously, Frank Martin's done some great things at South Carolina, but there's a couple other guys that I think you might like. Give me your opinion on who you think is in the running for Coach of the Year at the moment.
Well, Mike White, obviously, at Florida. You know, I think he may win it at the end of the day. But the 5th team at the SEC had a 5th team. I think it may be Tennessee. But my Coach of the Year, long shot, I may get it, is Rick Barnes at Tennessee.
Oh, Tennessee, Rick Barnes.
Yeah, I like him. Their strength of schedule is 3 in the country. Their RPI is number 10. They've done it with young players. He has 1 senior that's leading them in scoring, but his next 8 players are made up of 4 freshmen, 4 sophomores. He's relying on young talent. He's done a great job there.
And by the way, that is the coach you beat to get to the Final Four when he was at Texas in 2006. I just threw it in there. Hey, real quick, I'm going to roll back to Florida real quick because they have a guy named Kenyon Berry, which I think is a remarkable story. He played at college at Charleston. He does the underhand free throws at 90%, like his father, one of the greatest, if not the greatest, free throw shooter in NBA history, Rick Barry. But here's the crazy part about this. There's a bunch of sons that played in the NBA. Rick Barry, of course, is a top 50 player of all time, Hall of Famer. But everybody knows John and Brent and Drew. But Scooter Barry was the starting guard for Kansas 30 years ago. That's him against Mookie Blaylock in the finals where they beat Danny Manning and the Miracles. And this is a brother of a kid that's 30 years younger. Now he's a half-brother, but still, that's a remarkable story. Canyon in 2017, and their Scooter his senior year in 1988.
Well, it's wonderful to be a father and have those type of children that play at that level and be able to enjoy not only the career you had as a dad, but to watch your children also have great careers as well. Rick Barry, the only player in the history of basketball to lead the NBA in scoring, the ABA in scoring, and the NCAA in scoring. That record will never be broken because there's no no ABA anymore.
It will not. And he was one of the great scorers. I mean, Pistol Pete, kind of different kind of player, but they both can score. By the way, John Barry has become a great announcer. That's his son. He played for many teams in the NBA. Brent Barry was the slam dunk competition winner. The kid got some ups. And also he was a NBA champion with the Spurs as well. So Drew Barry also played with the Hawks and several other teams. So great lineage there, Coach, as do you. Coach John Brady, I can't thank you enough. Each and every week. We're going to have you next week with Collis Temple Jr. Can't wait for that. Hey, by the way, next week, Collis Temple Jr., Sidney Torres, the 4th, and Paul Sanchez, the musician. It's going to be a unique Mardi Gras show. But I got to thank everybody, William Hill and everybody else back there doing their job. Hey, we got a new guy, Tommy, doing audio today, Naila, and everybody else at WLE and CST Thank you for joining me on Primetime Sports. Enjoy your Mardi Gras vacation this week. Have fun.